Julia faced the landscape as if searching for an answer in every tree, in every curve. At first glance, it seemed like just another move to a new city. But inside, it was more than that. It was the end of a story she thought would last forever. A broken engagement, dreams left behind, and a heart that learned to distrust. She promised herself she wouldn't let anyone in again. But fate. Fate is an expert at breaking promises. It was on that same train that she met him. Noah. A silly accident, a spilled coffee, a smile. "Sorry, I'm terrible at balance," he said, and she smiled unintentionally. That moment, so simple, would mark the beginning of everything that came after. The city was small, coastal, one of those that seemed frozen in time. Julia started working at a local bookstore, trying to hide from the pain in the calmness of the shelves. But it seemed the universe had other plans. Almost every week she ran into Noah, at the cafe, in the square, at the market. And he always said something light, as if he knew she needed to smile, even if she didn't want to. Gradually, Julia began to look forward to these casual encounters, but she still kept her distance. A broken heart, no matter how much it disguises itself, still aches. It was on a clear sky afternoon that Noah invited her to visit the city's lighthouse. "You'll see the world differently from up there," he said. Julia hesitated, but that day she decided to say yes. The climb was easy, full of laughter and childhood stories. And at the top, there was silence. But it was a different kind of silence. A silence of comfort, of peace. Julia felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Tranquility beside someone. It wasn't overwhelming passion. It was connection. It was care. It was as if he were reading the lines between the words of her heart, with no rush to turn the page. Days later, he took her to the studio he kept at home, where he restored old books. It was there that he said he felt closest to his sister, who had passed away recently. Julia saw the way he handled each damaged page, with every mark of time, and she understood. He was also rebuilding himself. She was moved by that. For the first time, someone didn't want to fix her. They just wanted to be with her, even with the torn pages. The weeks passed like leaves blown by the wind. Julia began to feel lightness again. It wasn't like before. It was different, deeper. But then the news came. Noah received a job offer in another city, a unique opportunity, at a famous library. Julia froze. She was afraid that everything would end like last time, with someone leaving and her left with emptiness. She thought about distancing herself. Maybe it was better to avoid the pain. But Chloe, her friend at the bookstore, said, "You can't keep running away from love just because a previous story had an ending." At the farewell, Julia raised the lantern with a heavy heart. She looked at him and said, with a trembling voice, "I'm still afraid. But I'd rather take the risk and get hurt than spend my whole life protecting myself from feeling." Noah, with teary eyes, said he had declined the job. That he realized restoring books was special, but restoring lives was greater. "You gave me back the desire to start over, Julia. I choose to stay." The two finally began a new story, with simple but true chapters. Shared coffee, exchanged books, walks in the late afternoon. Their love did not come like a hurricane. It came like a breeze that gradually makes space, patiently, until everything inside us settles again. Julia realized that loving again is not forgetting the past. It is knowing that it existed, but that the present is more worth living. Some stories don't need grand promises. They just need two people willing to keep going, even when afraid. Julia thought she would never love again. And maybe, if she hadn't spilled that coffee, she never would have loved at all. But life is like that. Unexpected. Sometimes, what seems like a stumble is actually the beginning of your most beautiful story. After Noah's decision to stay, the days that followed were different. Not because anything spectacular had happened, but because now everything seemed more colourful. Julia began to notice the small details, like the way he furrowed his brow when he was focused, or the sound of his laugh when she told something silly. And Noah, in turn, respected her time like no one else. He didn't force conversations, didn't demand answers. He was just there, present, constant. A new chapter being written slowly, word by word. They didn't call it dating, not yet. It was more like a silent agreement to walk side by side, even without labels. And then autumn came. The wind brought a pleasant chill, and the leaves painted the city with shades of gold and red. The bookstore organized a local reading festival, and Julia got so involved in the preparations that she hardly noticed how much she was already part of the community. Noah helped as he could, organizing the shelves, preparing handmade bookmarks, covering old books for donation. It was on one of those days, amid laughter and the smell of coffee, that an elderly lady, a long-time customer, looked at the two of them and said, "You remind me of my first love. You can see it in your eyes." Julia blushed. Noah smiled without saying a word, and they both went on as if nothing had happened. But inside them, it was no longer just friendship. Time went by, and like all true love, difficult days also came. An unexpected visit from an ex-fiancé brought back ghosts that Julia thought she had buried. Noah saw when she froze, when she avoided talking about the subject. But he didn't press. He just left a note on her door that night. "I'm not here to erase your past. I'm here to be part of your now, if you let me." Julia cried when she read it. Not out of sadness, but relief. For the first time, someone loved her exactly as she was, and not as she should be. And there, alone in the room, she understood. There was no longer any reason to run away. The pain that once defined her no longer ruled her. Their relationship grew slowly but steadily. Conversations about the future came, small plans, like travelling together in the summer or opening a community literary space. Dreams that no longer seemed distant. Julia rediscovered her desire to write, something she had abandoned years before, and Noah encouraged her with every page. They said real love stories don't have a climax. They are made of small daily choices. They chose each other. Every day. Even when they were tired. Even when they disagreed. And this choice, more than any grand declaration, was what kept them both standing. One morning, while preparing a book fair in the courtyard of the local school, a child approached Julia with a book in hand and said, "Did you write this story? It looks like you." Julia smiled. It was just a short story, but it spoke about new beginnings. And there, surrounded by pages and laughter, she looked at Noah on the other side of the courtyard. He was laughing with a group of students, distracted. At that moment, she realized the story she thought she had lost was just beginning to be written in a more beautiful way. Because loving in the end is not about finding someone perfect. It is about finding someone who accepts you, even imperfect, and builds with you, page by page, the most real story of your life. Did you like this story? Write your comment, like the video, and subscribe to the channel.